आपकी एक और पुस्तक टू ग्रेटर हाइट्स सुरक्षा बलों और पुलिस में काम करने वाली महिलाओं के बारे में है जो विभिन्न भूमिकाएं निभा रही हैं। आपको पुलिस मेडल फॉर मेरिटोरियल सर्विस, अंतरिक्ष सुरक्षा पदक और कठिन सेवा पदक सहित कई पुरस्कार प्राप्त हैं। मैम, मंच पर आपका बहुत बहुत स्वागत है। नेक्स्ट वी हैव with us is Samragnee Banerjee. A very warm welcome, a Bengali poet, scholar, a screenwriter. She has 8 collections of poetry, 1 of short stories, and a book based on gender discrimination. She has got Filmfare nominations twice for the category of Best Dialogue. Her written films and web series are well admired. Her web series Lajja is the first Indian content on verbal abuse. Samragnee has been awarded with the Sahitya Akademi Yuva Puraskar and Shakti Chattopadhyay Samarok Samman. She is an ex-faculty of Bengali language at the American Institute of Indian Studies. A very warm welcome, ma'am. Sarbjeet Kaur Sohal. आपका मंच पर अभिनंदन है, आइएगा प्लीज और तालियों के साथ मैम को वार्म वेलकम दीजिएगा। सरबजीत कौर सोहल एक प्रसिद्ध पंजाबी कवि और कथाकार हैं। आपके नाम 3 कविता संग्रह, आलोचना पर एक पुस्तक और 7 अनुदित पुस्तकें प्रकाशित हैं। आपके कई शोध पत्र राष्ट्रीय और अंतर्राष्ट्रीय पत्रिकाओं में प्रकाशित हुए हैं। आप राज्यपाल पुरस्कार, टी पंजाबी अवार्ड, खालसा कॉलेज हेरिटेज अवार्ड आदि से सम्मानित हैं और वर्तमान में आप पंजाबी विश्वविद्यालय के पंजाबी विभाग में प्रोफेसर हैं। बहुत बहुत स्वागत है मैम। नेक्स्ट वी हैव विद अस मिस सरोजिनी साहू। आइएगा मैम। Miss Sarojini Sahoo has 13 collections of short stories, 12 novels, and a book of essays to her credit. Please put your hands together. Her works have been widely translated into different Indian and foreign languages. Kindle Magazine of Kolkata has enlisted her within the 25 exceptional women of India. Sahoo is a recipient of Odisha Sahitya Akademi Award, Jhankar Award, among others. मैम बहुत बहुत स्वागत। और अब मैं बुलाना चाहूंगी शाइस्ता अहमद जी को कि वो मंच पर आए। शाइस्ता अहमद एक प्रतिष्ठित कश्मीरी लेखिका, कश्मीरी उच्च शिक्षा की सहायक प्रोफेसर हैं। आपने कश्मीरी में 2 किताबें और एक विनिबंध लिखा है। आप साहित्य अकादमी की कश्मीरी परामर्श मंडल की पूर्व सदस्य हैं और ऑल इंडिया रेडियो की एक स्थापित गायिका हैं। क्या बात है, आपका बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया। Now we have with us Ranu Uniyal ji. A very warm welcome. Please put your hands together as she graces the stage. Ranu Uniyal 10 पुस्तकों की लेखिका और संपादक हैं। आपकी कविताएं, लेख तथा पुस्तक समीक्षाएं प्रतिष्ठित पत्र पत्रिकाओं में समय समय पर प्रकाशित हुई हैं तथा भारत और विदेशों में संकलित की गई हैं। आपकी कुछ उल्लेखनीय कृतियां हैं अक्रॉस द डिवाइड, दिसंबर पोएम्स तथा सईदा के घर। आपकी कविताओं का जर्मन, हिंदी, उड़िया, मलयालम, मराठी, स्पेनिश, उर्दू और उज़्बेक भाषाओं में अनुवाद किया गया है। आप यूके के हुल विश्वविद्यालय में कॉमनवेल्थ स्कॉलर रह चुकी हैं। आपका बहुत बहुत स्वागत है। इतना सुंदर पैनल हमारे सामने सज चुका है और सत्र की शुरुआत के लिए आग्रह करना चाहूंगी संजुक्ता मैम से कि काइंडली यू बिगिन द सेशन एंड द ड्यूरेशन फॉर द होल सेशन इज 1 hour 30 minutes. So accordingly we can allocate time और अगर हम सब टाइम का सम्मान करेंगे तो सेशन को हम टाइम पे खत्म कर पाएंगे। Yes ma'am. So please put your hands together as the chair walks up to the podium.
Hello everyone, good afternoon. And after food for thought can be a little challenging, but let us try to come back to this particular session. Many of you were present in the earlier one, which went on for a longer time, and maybe some of you who had said that you would come and join us haven't been able to till now. But it's wonderful, really, to welcome the audience because there is a significant gender imbalance here, and I find more men than women here. So this is the best way to begin a session on feminism in novels and short stories. And with more men, I'm sure all the speakers would be able to really reach all of you in terms of all the challenges and all the perceptions and perspectives that will be shared with all of you in terms of not only a general idea about feminism in novels, but all, as you noticed, all these wonderful panel, all of them are writers. And so I'm sure all of them will share their own work and tell us about their experiences and experiments with feminism in their own writings. Now, of course, as you know, there is always this perception that men write about flowers like we know about William Wordsworth, that is daffodils, and women write about cauliflowers. Yes, which in other words suggests that women are into those micro spaces of the home. The one compulsory room in a home is a kitchen. The other one, of course, is essential, but the kitchen is something which is the domain of the woman, which is considered to be the place which one cannot take away from a woman. And a woman would consider herself to be insulted if the man said that I will take over the kitchen and you just relax in front of the television. This is the stereotype. This is what we have been seeing through generations and centuries. Now, the British feminist writer Virginia Woolf had stated there was a crucial precondition if women were able to write what they were thinking about. And that was to commit homicide. That is, they had to murder the angel in the house. That is a very aggressive British image that is produced here, which means that the elimination of the angel in the house, what we know as the domestic goddess in our culture, is crucial. Because if you want to be very good, you cannot write what you're thinking. Yes? This is a conditioning that we have, and we have the brilliant feminist poet, Anamika, sitting here, and she very graciously and gracefully, by using the roses of irony, she's able to hint at and hit at the main problem in terms of women's identity. So I will go back in time a little. Ironically, since the name, notice the name, Unava Lakshmibai, a Telugu writer, is said to have stormed out of a large literary meeting in the 40s with the remark, in 1,000 years of Andhra literary history, couldn't you find even a single woman? She's asking. When Malayali writer Madhavi Kutty wrote on lesbianism, she was severely criticized. When a male writer wrote on the same topic, he was applauded. Mridula Garg, Hindi writer, as you know, was arrested on charges of obscenity for 2 pages in her novel Chit Cobra in 1979. And Nasira Sharma, Hindi, who wrote in Hindi, lost her job at the Jawaharlal Nehru University for her book on Iran and was hounded by fundamentalists. Now, among women authors writing about women in the 19th century, Tarabai Shinde was the foremost. She wrote attacking the male-dominated social system and the caste system. Her book, Stri Purush Tulana, published in 1882, is acknowledged as the first feminist book in India. Now, what is feminism? It is essentially the belief in social, economic, and political equality of the sexes. Although largely originating in the West, feminism is manifested worldwide and is represented by various institutions committed to activity on behalf of women's rights and interests. Feminism in literature is a critical approach that advocates for gender equality and women's rights. It examines how literature reflects challenges or shapes gender roles and societal norms. So, what does feminism in literature do? What is it that is exclusive to feminism? It promotes diverse perspectives in order to deconstruct traditional narratives that marginalize or silence women. It challenges patriarchal structures, and it highlights issues of representation, identity, and patriarchy. Feminist writers transition from the guarded tongue to the unguarded tongue. And here I have to also point out that ours is not merely a feminist novel session, it is also called Asmita. Now, Asmita is a Sanskrit word. I'm sure there are huge Sanskrit scholars here. It implies etymologically Asmi, I am, and Ta is the state or condition. And I would like to elaborate this and state, I think, therefore I am. Not I cook, therefore I am. Yes? My identity is my thinking mind, not my recipes. Yes? So feminism gestures towards liberation from patriarchal control. Who is the challenger or probably the enemy of feminism? Not men at all. Men are also trapped within that one concept of patriarchy. Today we are going to talk about feminism. Next time, if we find time, I will show you how men are oppressed in patriarchy as well, from the moment when they're asked to not cry and be a man. Yes? So Asmita Resource Center, just a little bit of an anecdote. In 2003, a world conference was organized in Hyderabad. And there, of 70 women writers, some of the best women writers who were invited there to talk about whether they were writing what they were thinking. And most of them said that the hardest challenges for most women writers come from where? Come from within their families and within themselves. That is why it is necessary to eliminate the angel in the house, the domestic goddess. And there, in course of that particular conference, the Tamil writer Hampirai said that her wrist was broken by her former husband for daring to write a poem about their divorce. When women write of broken marriages, lesbianism, these are immediately extrapolated to their personal lives. And you know about Mahashweta Devi, you know about how she deconstructs and reconstructs the image of Draupadi as an active agent of social change, if you have read that particular story. And then Hindi poet Anamika points out that she has imposed a spiritual diet on herself. Family compulsions to be a good daughter, mother, wife, etc. have locked her into the good girl syndrome that the majority of women writers suffer from. I will conclude by, I know you will never read my short stories, I have 2 books, but I'm tempted to share with you 2 short paragraphs from 2 of my short stories. One is called Blood Ties. And just 2 paragraphs just to show you what I was experimenting with. Here we find in this short stories, Blood Ties, marriage at 75 to a 71-year-old man. Outraged Sumita fumed as she told her husband Tanmay, I always told your mother was weird. But this is classic chi-chi. What will the children and all the friends and neighbors say? I'll never meet her again, though you perhaps will put on that sickening, all-forgiving smirk and go ambling up to her. And Clonmoy, the husband, replies, really, Sumita, it's for you that I agreed readily when Ma suggested that she wanted to move to the old people's home called Happy Home. She has been quite happy there, you'll agree. Free from domestic chores and squabbles, she has now time enough to devote to her sitar practice. Sometimes she always wanted something she had always wanted to do, but never could, as her job as principal of the school she helped to set up just didn't allow her any spare time. If she has found someone at this age, why on earth should you interfere? And the grandchildren, all around the 20s, they are the ones who are talking about it also. They rush to their friends with the story of their grandmother making big time news. Their friends reasoned and joked, and this is what young people are saying. They are both financially independent, that is the man and the woman. Plus, they fall within the dangerous bracket of pseudo-seculars, effects of globalization. This happens in the West, of course, but here, and we were thinking of advising our parents to send our grandparents to the old people's facilities that have cropped up all over the city, citing the example of your grandmother, of course. So this is what goes on there. No wonder these homes are becoming increasingly popular with old people who have money. They are voluntarily opting to live in these facilities. Maybe that's why my father said he'd prefer to move to one of the facilities than stay at home. Okay, I will just stop here. And another story. This is from my second volume of short stories. It's called It Begins at Home. I'll just read two short sections. The young girl, Mimi, is talking to her mother. Mimi now said quietly what she had imagined she would not be able to tell anyone in the whole world. She told her mother, Papa forced himself on me last night, Mama. He wouldn't let go. He tortured me throughout the night. He beat me as I struggled. It was useless. He was so strong, like an animal, a beast. He grunted, screamed, moaned. I wish I could have videoed it all. Even now, I can't believe it really happened, Mama. And she goes on and says, Mama, shouldn't we report what Papa did to me to the police? At school in our gender sensitization class, ma'am told us all children can get the help of the law if they have been abused. What Papa did to me is known as rape, isn't it, Mama? It is a criminal offense, ma'am told us. Also, ma'am had warned that the abuser can be just anyone, even family members, father, mother, uncle, friends, grandparents, sometimes women too. The law is the same for everyone. The mother then said, Mimi, these unfortunate incidents happen often in many families. Yours is not a unique case. I had an uncle who visited us often. He always made it a point to hug me to his chest. My mother has asked me to stay away when he came. As I stayed away, this uncle's visits became infrequent. In fact, our family rarely met him since then. Ignore Mimi, just ignore what happened. You will forget it soon. Your father will not repeat what he did on Sunday night. He has promised me. After all, you know, he's a good man. He's respected by so many people because of his professional achievements. All that will be destroyed. He will be ruined if this incident is made public. After all, as I said, such incidents happen within many, many families. These are never revealed, never discussed, never reported. The family is a sacred space, dear Mimi. So I will end here now and let us learn from the speakers. But this is what all of us here, I think, as we share our experiences, each other's experiences, will try to address in terms of breaking the silence, in terms of in the 21st century, after the first 25 years are already over, are women being able to write what they think? Are women being able to fill the gaps? And there I invite Nitu. Her name is Nitu, if you see on your program sheet, and she has dropped the patriarchal surname. Yes, that is her first assertion as a woman writer. And secondly, again, her own profession of being in the Indian police force is something outstanding. And so, Nitu, you tell us whether you write what you think. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
A very good evening. And thank you to Sahitya Academy for having me here today. And thank you to ma'am for her viewpoints that we just heard about. Just before the session, as we were talking, she did mention something very extraordinary, which could be thought of as ordinary, and yet it strikes you, where she says that, let's try and find out whether we write what we think. And if it's not there already in a domain, let's talk about it. And that is what started my personal journey to this. When we talk about feminism and we talk about the feminist soul, what are we really talking about? Is it really against the patriarchy of the society that we see? Is it really against the men, as ma'am just mentioned? Is it against just the gender? Or is it just a talk of equality? An equality to what extent? An equality where do we get to upset the so-called social order? And the social order, what is it that the social order that we are looking at? As a personal experience, when we first joined the armed forces, as was mentioned, I was one of the first ones to join. The point then, and the point even now today, is not that we want to do a job that is masculine in nature. We are there because we are needed. We are there because we bring something else to the table. We are there because we bring an empathy to the table. We also bring something else to the table, and that is being able to understand a social fabric that has been ripped apart because of a conflict. While we talk about centuries of conflict, and we talk about centuries of how people have been able to kill each other, let's be honest and be able to say that yes, most of those wars were the men wars. Those were the wars that were brought about by men on other men. Whether we talk about the situation that the world is facing today, or should we bring something else to the table? Should we talk about empathy? Should we talk about concern? Should we talk about things that are more than just plain conflict? Can we bring something else that is able to bring back the world from the brink of disaster? Can we do that as women? Can we bring out the feminine in the man who's able to recognize that there is something more to humanity than just plain aggression? When we talk about man as the hunter-gatherer, we've forgotten about women as the gatherer. We've forgotten about women as the nurturer. Even history has made us an invisible woman. If we talk about the paintings that we see in the cave paintings, there we assume that these were the ones which were made by the men. How are we assuming it to be so? Why are we not thinking that these paintings could have been made by the women? And then when we look very closely, that is when we think that yes, that is a possibility. That is because as women, we've been come to a place which is an invisible place. An invisible woman because the history was written by the man. It is his story. It isn't her story. It isn't our story. It is just his story. And his story, which does not take into consideration the 50% of the people that are still there. And yet, when we look at women who are there, who are trying to put in a better world, are we able to look at women who, beyond cooking, are able to do it? And it's not just cooking that is supposed to be the target. I'm sure most of us have seen the movie Mrs. where we've come across our own problems and our own issues. However, the nurturing must continue. And as has been pointed out a number of times, that we are very short. So I'll just have a small this thing. This is one of my own poems, which says, you must know. You must know. I don't want you to complete me or heal me. You are not the missing part of a puzzle, which is me. I want you to know that I was complete before you came along. Irregular pieces maybe, but complete nonetheless. You bring that extra sparkle to life, which already had colors. You make the day brighter and the horizons a little sharper. I love being with you, for it brings a spring to my step, and it makes me a happier version of me. Let's be together for the radiant smiles and affection of two people, and not to compete with each other. And two women who then start life again. There are people who have had their own struggles, who have their own wishes, who then want to come back and then bring up a complete society, a completeness within themselves. As you travel the road, a new you emerges. A you who has shed a skin. So might be soft and pink, or you withered with the sun and bunked by the rain. A you who you may not recognize. A you who is but an alien. Grasp the stranger's hand, for she needs the touch. Feel the pulsating wrist as it beats a new tune. This new you needs empathy and understanding. Let her set the pace. Allow her small decisions. Her wounds are hers to heal, and so are her bruises. This new you is a little unsure, a little unsteady, but her gaze is unflinching. And she's sure to find a foot sooner or later. But that's for her to decide, sooner or later. As for now, just be with her. So as I come to an end to what I had to say, there's just one thing that can bring about a better world, whether it is in conflict areas or it is in any other sphere of society. Just us as in you and me together, as in you and me together, who can change the world, who can bring about a better world. And with just two words, Yashaswini Bhav. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Nitu. This was brilliant, concise, and proved again that you belong to the Indian Army, that you know when to finish and when to begin. So the next presenter here is Samragnee Bandyopadhyay. I will not make a cast crack. So Samragnee Bandyopadhyay, who belongs to my part of the country. That is, she's also from Kolkata, and she will share her impressions about feminism, and she will also share her own work with us. Thank you, Samragnee.
Thank you, Sanjukta Di. Thank you, Sahitya Akademi, for inviting me to this National Festival of Letters. And thank you, Nitu ji, for your wonderful presentation. And this is a very special day, as one of my professors is also sitting here, Shayantonda. Today, I've chosen not to really talk about my own work, but I've actually chosen to talk about the how feminism has affected or has entered the Indian short stories and novels. But since, Sanjukta Di pointed it right, that it is Asmita, and probably it also, it is about what we write and what we think. So just to be precise, I am presently doing my research on linguistic abuse and gender. So that is how I think I perform my share of feminism. And in screenwriting also, I'm constantly trying to bring feminist perspectives into popular media. I have few films and web series. And as far as my poetry is concerned, I think I generally keep it safe from any ism, and whatever I feel like I write. So yeah, that is my share of writing and thinking. So feminism in Indian novels and short stories, I've written something. I was reading thoroughly and I've written something. I think I'll keep it short in around 10 to 11 minutes, Sanjukta Di. Probably not less than that, but 10 to 11 minutes, I'll absolutely finish it. Hopefully, yeah. Thank you. Although I haven't worked in army, but hopefully I'll not take more. So today is 11th of March, and on 8th of March, it was the International Women's Day. This year, the theme was for all girls and women, rights, equality, and empowerment. So even in 2025, this needs to be the theme, right? But feminism in Indian novels or short stories, thankfully, is not that late. The topic is extremely vast, and so it will not be a justice if I want to cover the whole of it. But neither can I leave the temptation of trying to cover at least few texts which I admire personally. But mostly, I would definitely want to focus on Bengali literature, as that is my mother tongue and as I represent Bengal. Pita rakshati komare bharta rakshati yovane, rakshanti stavire putra nastri, swatantriya marhati. The father guards her during virginity, the husband guards her in youth, the son guards her in old age, the woman is never fit for independence. This is a verse from Manusmriti, and this helps to set the tone of the matrix in which the voice of feminism will later come as a blow. To start with, if we look at our Mahakavyas, both Ramayana and Mahabharata are male-centric kavyas, where women are important, but they often lack agency. The women characters of our Mahakavyas become extremely important because using them, new narratives have been woven to create a counter-narrative or often a subversion. The character Sita becomes a tool for subversion almost all over India. Kurutalin Haidar's Sita Betrayed, the novella, although did not talk about the character of Ramayana, but uses the name Sita to portray a woman who is uprooted due to partition and migration. She, Sita Mirchandani, gets involved in many relationships, but could not find the solace she was searching for. The relationships often symbolizes the root, the very desh which she was searching. Sita was searching herself. Isn't it same with the Sita of Ramayana? Even though not told vividly, it still remains suggestive that Sita had her own quest. In Bangla, Nobonita Debshen has written Sita Theke Shuru and Mollika Sengupta has written Sitayon. Both the text talks from the point of view of Sita. Just like in Oriya literature, Pratibha Roy writes Jaggosheni and writes from the point of view of Draupadi. In this text, Sitas and Draupadis are more human, flawed, and layered. Set in Bangla, Mahashita Devi has a short story named Draupadi, which Sanjukta was also referring, set in the Nakshal period where Draupadi belongs to a marginal community but fights for her rights. In this story too, just the same has been used. One of my most favorite texts is by a Telugu poet and a writer, Lalita Kumari, popularly known as Volga. Volga has written a book named The Liberation of Sita or Vimukti. And this book seems fascinating to me because it not only deals with Sita, but it also deals with other characters whom Sita meets and builds a strength of sisterhood. In this novella, Sita is now abandoned and stays with her sons. Every day the kids roam around and goes here and there. For bringing them back, Sita needs to visit different places. And by doing that, Sita starts meeting different women. She meets Urmila, Renuka, Ahulla, and most interestingly, Shurpanakha. Shurpanakha, the demon of Ramayana, the demon whose nose was cut down by Rama because Shurpanakha dared to propose him. It was almost what we call today a witch hunting, maybe. What do we expect? We expect Shurpanakha must be very sad, living somewhere alone with a deformed face. But Volga shows that Shurpanakha now lives in a beautiful garden, wears flower garland, and still celebrates her beauty. Ram could not stop Shurpanakha from being beautiful because beauty is what Shurpanakha had within. Chita talked to Shurpanakha and is almost like the wife talking to the other woman, but strange enough, they do not bear any animosity towards each other, but rather they celebrate a sisterhood through deep conversation. Sita showed her concern for Shurpanakha, which was real, and Shurpanakha too treated Sita with grace. Down the ages, women have continued to bear the baton of patriarchy and have fought with each other. The mother-in-law, daughter-in-law fights, the sister-in-law fights, and so does the wife and the other woman fights. But in Vimukti, Volga changes this narrative. At the end of the book, when Ahulla asks that who will liberate them? Sita replies, we ourselves. But is it only Sita who is being used time and again as a tool for subversion? No. For a change, Shurpanakha has been brought back too. Shagota Dasgupta, a Bengali poet, writes her first novel, Shurpanakha, which got published this year, where not only did she celebrate Shurpanakha, but finally made Shurpanakha take a revenge against Ram. Just like Kurutalin Haider, Dina Mehta's book, The Other Woman and the Other Stories, deals with two characters, Ram and Sita, where they are common people, where they are not characters of the Mahakavya. And in the story, Sita fights against Ram's infidelity. So feminism in Indian literature is extremely powerful yet subtle. And probably because of that, R.K. Gupta thought that Indian literature mostly celebrated creative feminism rather than critical feminism. Here, I would want to differ because Indian narratives had the power of being creative yet critical. It is true that till a time, the suffering of women have been highlighted more, but we will see that in a mundane regularity of women characters in Indian literature, they have celebrated feminism by asking very pertinent questions, doing the correct act, and often by leaving the center stage as a protest. Mrinal of Strirpatro by Rabindranath leaves the house and writes a letter and signs off by stating her name Mrinal instead of a status in the Shongshar, which is only the major bow. She also writes Tomader Choron Tolashraya Chinno Mrinal, which means breaking the shackles of the shelter that you have provided me at your feet. In the story Bodnam, Shodamini, in spite of being the wife of the inspector, took the responsibility of Uniyal, who was fighting against the government or the British Raj. Shodamini's act might look like a creative feminism, but to me it is extremely critical, as Shodamini here is exercising her own choice and thus agency. Many of Rabindranath's women characters, both in novels and short stories, have always been vocal about their needs and desires. Here I've written about Charulata, Noshtonir, Hoimo, Nirupama, but I'm just moving fast. So Nirupama of Denapauna remains significant because she fought against the dowry much before the anti-dowry law came into action. I've talked about Binodini and Mohenjo's love. I've talked about Sharotchandra's Krishnakantir Vil, where Rohini, being a widow, became mad in love for a married man, Gobindulal. To me, these are also part of feminism because here the women has exercised their own choice and their own agency. Rabindranath's Damini of Choturango has been an all-time favorite of mine. In Choturango, Damini says this to Shochish. আমাকে তোমাদের ভালো লাগিবে বলিয়া নিজের ইচ্ছায় তোমাদের মধ্যে আমি আসি নাই আমাকে তোমাদের ভালো লাগিতেছে না বলিয়া তোমাদের ইচ্ছায় আমি নড়িব না which means I've not come here because some of you will like me and so just because some of you are not liking me I will not leave either. Throughout Choturango, Damini has been an important, layered, empowered female voice, which also becomes one of the most prominent female voice of Rabindranath. If we want to look into Bonkim, we will find Aisha of Durgesh Nandini falling in love with Joyshingo, in spite of Joyshingo being of a different religion. So here also comes intersectionality, which is one of the prominent themes of feminism today. It is no more gender alone. Caste, class, race, religion becomes important along with gender. Like in Bishbrikho, orphan widow Kundonondini wanted to have it all, just like the Shukhu of our Shukhudukur Golpo from Thakumar Jhuli, who has been criticized just for wanting a good dress and a big piece of fish, and because she's Shukhu, as in happy, she becomes the villain. Through children literature, patriarchy travels within us, and so writers need to play a vital role to counter that. Nabanita Debchen wrote Rupkathar Golpo, keeping girl child with all the agency and at the center. Now, to go back to the adult literature, one of the important voices for feminism in Bengali literature is definitely Michael Madhusudan Dotto. His Birangona is a collection of letters which have all the female voices writing letters like Promila, Tara, Shurpanakha, Shita, and Chitrangota. Tara writes a letter to Shom stating that she desires him, knowing that he's the disciple of her husband. Interestingly, Birangona was dedicated to Bidyasagar, who changed the scenario of women's education and widow remarriage. We can't really forget Zaida from Bishad Sindhu by Mir Musharraf Hussain, who fought for her rights. We also definitely remember Tara Shanku's Kushum in Putul Nacher Itikotha and Boshanto in Kobi. Manik Bandyopadhyay's Podda Nodir Majhi, which otherwise focuses on the river and the hilsa, but we also see how Kopila, who was the sister-in-law of Kuber, actually runs away from her home with Kuber just because of love. So as I was telling, love remains an important motive or tool to create subversion and to practice agencies. We were talking about intersectionality. And so just like Mahashweta Devi dealt with women from marginal community, Taslima Nasreen and Selina Hussain and many others dealt with women from minority religious community. Taslima's Lodja, Utol Hawa, Shario Blouse, Dikhondito, and on the other hand, Selina Hussein's novel, Podo Shabdo, like many of her other writings, dealt with a Muslim woman, Nasima, who after divorce falls in love with Sabir and starts to live together. Of course, we cannot forget Begum Ruqayya Sultana's Dream, an utopic feminist text which creates a parallel world of fantasy. From Moitreyi Devi to Rabia Khatun, from Swarno Kumari, Shoilobala Ghoshchaya, Jyotirmoyi Devi, Amodini Devi, Prashannamoyi Devi to Suchitra Bhattacharya, the legacy continued. Kamla Das once said that earlier there was a norm that women will only write about God and domestic bliss. And in their writing, body and physicality will be ignored. Of course, women writing broke that myth. We definitely celebrate Ismat Chughta's uninhibited voice, Anita Mehta's celebration of women's physicality. In Konkani literature, Jayanti Nayak, in her story Garjan, presents a village woman fighting male authoritarianism with considerable firmness and success. Here, Jayanti almost joins the line with Mahashweta. Yeah. How many minutes more? 2, 3? No minutes more? Okay. So since no minutes more, it's 0 minutes more, I'm just jumping towards the end.
Do the wrapping up.
Yeah, sure. Okay, so if I have to wrap up, let me just tell the points which I really want to make it. That is like Kobita Singh wrote Charjon Ragi Ramani. And this is somehow important to me because it was, we celebrate the angry young man era with Amitabh Bachchan. So writing a novel when named Charjon Ragi Ramani becomes extremely important to me in Bangla literature. So similarly, yes, I was continuing to talk about Rashundari Devi and everyone. I was also talking about Nayanthara Sehgal, who said one interesting thing. I'll just read quickly. I've always felt that armies of the world marched through my room as I wrote, and the paradise must be a place where there are no interruptions. So basically, Virginia Woolf was talking about room of one's own, and Nayanthara Sehgal was repeating that. But here I wanted to bring about Chandraboti, who was actually started writing Ramayana in a Shiv temple. So how space can become different and any space can become a writing space. And Indian tradition is a proof of that. So I really wanted to talk about that. Now I'm quickly going back a little, skipping a lot of things. That is the Middle Age. So although we say that the Middle Age is a dark era, I firmly believe that in Indian context, it is not. So especially if we want to look at the Mongol Kabbos here, the Dharma Mongol, the Chondi Mongol, and the Monusha Mongol, we will find a celebration of feminism there, especially with Monusha and Behula, and also with Pullora. We find a celebration of feminism because Monusha, being the illicit daughter of Shiva and with one blind eye, she had a deformed face, but she always fought for her rights and she made Chad Saudagar to do a worship of hers. And she was also a threat to Chad Saudagar's family. So celebrating Monusha, celebrating Behula makes us think that at least in Indian tradition, feminism is not only 50 years old or something like that. It dates back to I can find it everywhere actually. So Jyotirmoyi Devi once said, "Meder kono itihash nei. There's no history of women." Although in Bangla, ancestors are called Purba Purush, but at least today we know that we have a long list of both Purba Purush and Purba Nari, to whom we should pay homage because for their feminism came in Indian literature. And today, we can proudly say that even in Indian novels and short stories, there's a history of women characters, there's a history of feminism. মেয়েদেরও নারীবাদের ইতিহাস আছে. From Monu to Monosha to Mahashweta, the journey is long and discussion worthy. Thankfully, the journey is still continuing and many writers like me has joined the force. Thank you so much, and I'm sorry if I've taken 2 minutes extra.
Thank you, Samragnee. That was really a very, very competent feminist literary history beginning through the colonial and the post-colonial to the era of globalization. And it has been brilliantly structured. And may I congratulate you for also keeping a little almost within the time, I could say. And so may I invite the next presenter here, Sarbjeet, Kaur, Sohal. As you notice that these are voices from all parts of India. And so there is also a sense of national integration as we move forward with the concept of feminism in creative writing, especially
Thank you.
prose.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Sarbjeet. Please go ahead.
हाजरीन, जब मैंने मंच पे बैठे देखा सबको, एक तो मैं ये बात बता दूं कि मेरी हिंदी थोड़ी सी कमजोर है, तो मैं भी उसमें थोड़े से शब्द पंजाबी के भी हों। आई थिंक वो समझ नहीं आएगा सबको। ओके, तो सबसे पहली बात जो मुझे समझ में आई है कि डाइस पे सभी नारियां बैठी हैं, और मुझे ये लगता है कि जब भी नारी विमर्श पे या नारी चिंतन पे या नारीवाद पे कोई बात होती है तो वो ये सोच लिया जाता है कि ये नारी का विषय है, नारी चिंतन का विषय है, तो नारी ही इसके बारे में ज्यादा बात कर सकती है। ऐसे ही जैसे अगर हमने दलित चेतना पे बात करनी हो तो वहां पे भी डाइस पे वही लोग होते हैं, सॉरी टू से मैं ये वर्ड नहीं बोलना चाहती, कि जो दलित राइटर होते हैं जो उस कैटेगरी से आते हैं। दूसरी बात, जो मुझे लगती है कि एक धर्म की हम बहुत बातें करते हैं और सबसे ज्यादा अधर्म जो है वो आगे बढ़ता जाता है। इसी तरह से नारी की भलाई के लिए हम बहुत बातें करते हैं, पर उसकी जो सिचुएशन पोजीशन है वो डिटीरियोरेट होती जा रही है। कहते हैं कि हवा भी चलती है तो वो थक के रुक जाती है, रेखाएं औरत के हाथ में होती हैं तो वो तकदीर आदमी के लिए होती है। औरत अपने ही घरों में बेगानगी हंडाती है, और औरत जिंदगी को देखती है, सूंघती है, पर जीती नहीं है, क्योंकि उसके पास एक तो जायदाद का हक भी नहीं है। और जब हम शुरू करते हैं बच्ची की परवरिश, तो जो पैतृक सत्ता है उसकी परवरिश के नाम पे हम इतना कुछ उसके फ्रेमवर्क में, उसके ब्रेन में डाल देते हैं, और उसको इस तरह से तराशा जाता है कि वो इस सारे के मकड़ जाल में फिक्स होती जाती है, उस फ्रेम में फिक्स हो जाती है। उससे आगे पीछे वो सोचना शायद सोच ही नहीं सकती। सो औरत के हिस्से की स्पेस जो है वो उससे छीन ली जाती है, और औरत जीने की कोशिश में पल पल मरती है। जब भी हम किसी बौद्धिकता की बात करें या इंटेलेक्ट की बात करते हैं तो तब वहां पे सोचा जाता है कि मेल है, ये बौद्धिक इंटेलेक्चुअल है, बुद्धिमान ज्यादा होगा औरत से। सो इस तरह से भी उसके साथ डिस्क्रिमिनेशन होता है। जब हम अपने चारों तरफ देखते हैं तो औरत के लिए जो भी इस संसार में है, इस समाज में है, वो सारा कुछ मर्द की प्रभुता दिखलाता है और मर्द के पक्ष में है। जितने भी नियम कानून, कदरें कीमतें, प्रतिमान, वो सारे औरत को दबाने वाले ही सामने आते हैं। तो ये सारी चीजें औरत को जहनी गुलामी की तरफ धकेल देती हैं, या फिर औरत सजावटी वस्तु बन जाती है या दुर्जैली होंद में चले जाती है। तो उसका सिर्फ शारीरिक शोषण ही नहीं होता, उसका भावुक शोषण भी होता है, उसके साथ व्यवहारिक शोषण भी किया जाता है और शाब्दिक शोषण भी होता है। तो बहुत सी औरतें जो हैं वो शारीरिक या फिजिकल, जो पढ़ी लिखी नहीं है वो इसको एक्सेप्ट कर लेती हैं, पर जो पढ़ी लिखी औरतें हैं वो भी व्यवहारिक और शाब्दिक शोषण का शिकार हो जाती हैं। सो ऐसे लगता है कि जैसे औरत निंद्रा में चल रही है और वो इसमें कुछ भी बदल नहीं सकती, क्योंकि उसके मन में ये जो कॉन्सेप्ट्स हैं इतने फिक्स किए हुए हैं, तो उसको बदलने में शायद अभी समय लगेगा। जब हम नारीवाद की बात करते हैं तो वेस्टर्न कॉन्सेप्ट की बात करें तो फिर सिमोन इरेगैरे या सीखू की बात होती है। और जब हम अपना ऐतिहासिक जो है दृष्टि से देखते हैं तो महात्मा बुद्ध ने जब औरत को संघ में शामिल करने के लिए सोचा था, तो जब अम्बरपाली या अमरपाली थी उसको संघ में शामिल होने के लिए ज्यादा तो नहीं तैयार थे। सो इसको हम आंशिक जो नारीवाद वहां से शुरू होने की बात करते हैं। और इसकी सबसे महानतम जो कह लें कि एग्जाम्पल है वो है गुरु नानक देव जी। गुरु नानक देव जी तहत उन्होंने कहा था कि परमात्मा ना नर है ना नारी है, वो अकाल पुरख है। यानी कि जो पुरख है वो शक्ति भी है, इंटेलिजेंस भी है, और उसमें नर भी है और नारी भी है, यानी शक्ति और इंटेलिजेंस दोनों है। सो परमात्मा से मिलना है तो, क्योंकि नारी जो है वो सृजनात्मक और रचनात्मक सारी तरह की जो उसके पास कह लें कि गतिविधियां है या वो सारा ये देखती है। तो इतिहास में एक और एग्जाम्पल है हमारे पास मीराबाई की। जब उसको विवाह के लिए मजबूर किया जा रहा था तो उसने विद्रोह किया था, उसने सेक्रेड अवतार कृष्ण को मान के। तो ये भी एक तरह से उसका अवरोध करना या नाबरी की एक एग्जाम्पल है हमारी हिस्ट्री में। ब्रह्मांड जो है वो उसको सृजनात्मक कहते हैं। तो सेम ही जो नारी है वो भी सृजनात्मकता के गौरवशाली उसकी पैरोकार है। हमारी इतिहास में रानी झांसी हुई है, रजिया सुल्तानिया हुई है। एक शरीर से ज्यादा उनकी जो इंटेलेक्ट है या उनकी शक्ति है उसकी बात हुई है। अंग्रेजी में जब भी आलोचना होती है तो हम लोग ह्यूमन काइंड बोलते हैं, मैन काइंड नहीं यूज करते। हमें अपनी में भी पंजाबी में हम लोगों को भी अभी अपनी आलोचना की भाषा में भी तरमीम करनी पड़ेगी। जब हम भारतीय दर्शन की बात करते हैं, सांख्य शास्त्र की, तो उसमें भी जिक्र आता है तो सृष्टि के तीनों गुण जो हैं, रजो तमो सतो, वो प्रकृति के ही गुण हैं। और तब उस समय नारी को सर्वशक्तिमान बताया गया था। तो वेदांत तक पहुंचते पहुंचते फिर जो प्रभुता मर्द की है वो आ गई हमारे सामने। अगर हम मैथोलॉजी की बात करें तो उसमें भी हमें नारी को दैवी शक्ति के रूप में देखा है हमने। चंडी और दुर्गा जो करेक्टर्स हैं वो, और इसमें भी मर्द तब अकर्ता माना जाता था और नारी फुली एम्पावर्ड। नारी का ये बिंब जो है वो हमारी मिथ कथाएं में भी मिलता है और भारतीय चेतन में भी ये इसका स्वरूप देखने को आता है। तो जब आर्यंस आए तो फिर पितर सत्ता आहिस्ता आहिस्ता आ गई और नारी को बागिन, पैर की जुत्ती, गुत्त हेठा मत, इस तरह से हमने इस समय तक जो आदि आबादी है, दुनिया की आधी आबादी को हमने जो कह ले के डेवलप नहीं होने दिया पूर्ण तौर पे। और जिस समाज में औरत पूर्ण तौर पे डेवलप नहीं है वो समाज या आगे उसकी ग्रोथ का आप अंदाजा लगा सकते हैं। तो एक ही मंदिर में देखिए कितनी त्रासदी है कि एक ही मंदिर में देवी है, अंदर देवी को पूजा जाता है और वहां ही है देवदासी की प्रथा रही है हमारे पास, जिसका कितना शारीरिक शोषण हुआ करता था। औरत जो है, एक बड़ा प्यारी बात जो मुझे समझ में आती है कि वो चेतना है। चेतना भी है, मुक्ति है और चरित्र। तो ये तीन चीजें हैं जिसमें से हमने मुक्ति को भी साइड पे कर दिया और चेतना जो आत्मबोध है वो उसका अपना पर्सनल है, सार्वजनिक वस्तु नहीं है। तो जो करेक्टर है या चरित्र है वो सार्वजनिक है। तो उसको अगर हम मलिन कर दें, किसी औरत के करेक्टर के बारे में उसको दूषित कर दें, तो देखने में फिर यही समझ आती है कि ये बड़ा आसान सा काम है। तो हमने ज्ञानवंती, बोधवंती, आत्मवंती, ब्रह्मवंती की जगह पे शीलवंती या लजावंती को ही प्रेफरेंस दे दी। सो जो औरत है उसकी हमने चेतना और मुक्ति को साइड पे कर दिया। अब जब हम बात करेंगे, क्योंकि नारीवाद पंजाबी नावल और शॉर्ट स्टोरीज में मैं बात करूंगी इसके बारे में, तो 20वीं सदी से जो दूसरा पक्ष था, तब नारीवाद के मुद्दे सामने आए थे। औरतों की आत्मनिर्भरता, पितृसत्तात्मक समाज में उनकी दशा और उनका जो शोषण हो रहा है उसकी बात हुई थी। इसमें अमृता प्रीतम को आप सभी जानते होंगे। अमृता प्रीतम का नावल था पिंजर, उसमें पूरो नायिका थी जो पार्टीशन का दर्द हंडाती है। इसी तरह से इस्मत चुगतई, उसकी कहानी है लिहाफ, वो भी औरत की सेक्सुअलिटी और उसकी आजादी की बात करती है। दीप कौटिवाना का नावल फ्यूडल सिस्टम के बारे में है। अजीत कौर की कहानी खाना बदोश, वो फालतू औरत यानी औरत को फालतू बना दिया जाता है, उसका विषय है। इसी तरह से हमारी नई कहानीकार है सरगी है, उसकी हॉलीडे वाइफ, तृप्ता के सिंह की जरीब और एक दिन, और मैं भी कहानी लिखती हूँ तो मेरी कहानियां तकरीबन सारी इंटरवल तो बाद, हसरत, तफ्तीश, कमबख्त, सेठी, बुर्ज खलीफा, ये सारी इसमें जो औरत शोषित हो रही है वो दिखाई गई है। सो जैसे मैं एक आध एग्जाम्पल देना चाहूंगी कि जैसे कहानी है तफ्तीश, तो इसमें एक लड़की है, उसका फादर उसका शोषण करता है, फिजिकल अब्यूज करता है बड़ी बेटी का। तो उसके बाद वो जब उसकी माँ जो है वो ये सारा कुछ सहन करती है। उसके भाई तब छोटे थे, भाई बड़े हो गए, तो जब उसका फादर उसकी छोटी बेटी पे आंख रखने लगा, तब उसकी माँ ने उसका विरोध किया। तो वो हर समय अपनी बेटी को जैसे नजर के नीचे रखती थी। तो एक दिन वो फादर उसको पकड़ना चाहते हैं, उसके साथ अब्यूज करना चाहता है। तो तब उसके बेटे भी आ गए और माँ, और उन्होंने उसको उसका कत्ल कर दिया। कत्ल करने के बाद जो पुलिस ऑफिसर होता है वो तफ्तीश करता है इस सारी घटनाक्रम की। तो उसमें ये सामने आता है, जब उसको ये पता चलता है कि ये आदमी का चरित्र खराब था और वो अपनी बेटियों को अब्यूज कर रहा था, तो उसने एक तरह से कह ले कि उसका जो मन था, उसने केस को भी थोड़ा कमजोर कर दिया और माँ और बेटी दोनों को केस से बाहर कर दिया। बेटों को ऊपर केस होता है और फिर वो थोड़ी देर के बाद वो भी छूट जाते हैं। तो ये सच में एक क्योंकि मेरे हस्बैंड भी पुलिस डिपार्टमेंट में AIG रहे हैं, तो मेरे पास वहां से बहुत सी शॉर्ट स्टोरीज आती है। सो मेरा कहने का मतलब ये है कि अब पंजाबी कहानी जो है वो उसमें क्राइम स्टोरीज भी आ रही हैं, और जो नारी या हमारी औरतें लिख रही हैं वो पूरी तरह से इसके बारे में कह लें कि, पर अभी भी एक बात है कि हम उसको उसका स्वरूप सामने तो ले आते हैं, नारी का दर्द तो सामने आ जाता है, लेकिन उससे निकलने का रास्ता जो है अभी भी कहीं ना कहीं हम नहीं उसको बता पाते। इसी तरह से जी मैं वाइंड अप कर देती हूँ। सो कुछ हमारे पास क्रांतिकारी रूप भी है स्टोरीज में, जैसे जो नारियां क्रांतिकारी भी हैं, जैसे मेरी स्टोरीज ही हैं। पुटकंडा है, मस्यादा चन, हाशिए ते सिलबटा, और इसी तरह से वर्जनामा जो है उसको उल्लंघती भी हैं औरतें। और मेरी एक प्रोस की है जो अभी द ब्लीडिंग वुमेन, वो प्रोज की बुक है और उसमें सारी बुक में इसी बारे में, नारी के शोषण के बारे में ही बात की गई है, उसकी जो सेल्फ रिस्पेक्ट है। तो इसमें इतिहास मूलक पात्र भी हैं हमारे पास, जिसमें हमारा एक नावल है दीवा बले सारी रात, गुरचरण रामपुरी का, और कौरव सभा है जिसमें द्रौपदी की त्रासदी को पेश किया गया है। इसी तरह भाई वीर सिंह का नावल है बहादुर सिख औरत की बात करता है। सो अहल्या के बारे में बलदेव सिंह सड़कनामा ने अभी लिखा है, गौतम बुद्ध की जो पत्नी है अहल्या, उसके दर्द को भी बयान किया गया है। और अभी लास्टली रानी जिंदा के ऊपर जो महाराजा रंजीत सिंह की लास्ट वाइफ थी, छोटी सबसे, उसके बारे में भी नावल आया। सो अंत में मैं ये कहूंगी कि नारीवादी सिर्फ नारी लेखक नहीं हो सकते, मर्द लेखक भी हो सकते हैं। और हमारी जो इंडियन मिथोलॉजी है अगर हम उससे भी प्रेरणा ले तो औरत सशक्त हो सकती है। सो औरत को अपना आप पहचानना पड़ेगा, सेल्फ रिस्पेक्ट को समझना पड़ेगा। सो पंजाबी कहानी और पंजाबी नावल जो है वो अन्य भारतीय भाषाओं के सामने बहुत ही अच्छी उनकी जो गौरवशाली पहचान है। सो इस तरह से मैं कहूंगी कि आज के दिन हमने इन सभी बातों के ऊपर विचार चर्चा की और मैं धन्यवाद करना चाहूंगी साहित्य अकेडमी का, जिन्होंने मुझे ये आपके समक्ष ये बातें करने का मौका दिया। बहुत धन्यवाद।
Thank you, Sarbjeet. Of course, you said औरत जिनके कोशिश है जिनके कोशिश में पल पल मरती है, and also it reminded me of मैं चुप रहूंगी, that film, but we have moved much beyond that. And so may I invite Sarojini Sahoo, because though this is a fascinating session and we have these powerful speakers, but time, yes, is not waiting for us at all. And though we also belong to a country of from time to timelessness, but in this session, it is all about time. Yes. So the next speaker is Sarojini Sahoo, a very well-known, well-respected feminist writer.
Dignitaries on the dais and friends, namaskar. Being a writer, I think I am more a feminist. And being a feminist, I think I am more a writer. That is my opinion. And as we have no time, so
Yeah, all of us have watched it, then we are watching.
so Asmita, feminism in Indian literature, novels and short stories. Feminism is a fight for women's equality and fight against type of practical violence. Literally, feminism focused on the politics of female authorship, depiction of plight of women. In Indian society, women have always viewed inferior, underprivileged. Really, it is a very awful shape. Feminism in India is a movement that seeks to establish and protect the right of women. It aims to achieve gender equality, which includes equal access of education, health, and every right to lead a sound life. In India, the status of women writers are more critical. Men dominated. The role of women is often inspired rather than to create. They are labeled as women writers and are still considered oddities and labeled for their difference and status as an other. Virginia Woolf said that in order for a woman to be a writer, she needs a room of her own with a door and a lock and financial security. That sounds pretty good, but is it really practicable for a female writer to lock the door for writing? They have their families, their children, their household responsibilities, which always ring to pull out of that state of muse-inspired thought. The male writers are supposed to abandon everything in search of inspiration to lock their doors from their family and rather than his family to create divine inspired art. But has any woman enjoyed this right in our South Asian perspective. The first wave feminism in India began with anti-colonial reform movement. Tarabhai Shinde was an associate of Savitribai Phule, has written Stree Purush Tulana, a comparison between men and women. It's a pamphlet. Shinde was a writer who protested against the patriarchy and caste system in 1882. In 1898, after the 16 years of Stree Purush Tulana, Rebati, a short story, was written by Fakir comparison with other stories written at that time in Indian literature. It is common middle class woman's life. The story of that time were most probably based on royal family. It is a great story which dealt with the feminism, especially the right of women's education. Had intended to read and learn more, though she could not and memorize the verse of village tax collector for local landlord Jamidar, arranged a private tutor, Vasudev Mahapatra, popularly known as Basu Master in village. Rebati's grandmother was against such type of liberation to Rebati as she thought reading and writing were not meant for girl. The story turned into a tragic mode when Samabandhu and his wife died in family. His family was in distress. Basu Master came forward to take responsibility, but God was more cruel and Basu Master also died in cholera too. Rebati to believe that the rebuked Rebati for her unusual role